today's video, we're going to be talking about Pluto progress to 12th or transiting the 12th. I'm super excited about this video because I'm probably biased on it because this is my own placement, but I really love this position because of the dreams. The dreams are just super cool, and it's probably one of the coolest positions I think to have. So when Pluto enters the 12th house, so if you're someone with Pluto in the first house, what happens is you have a progress chart. And through the progress chart, if Pluto has progressed into your 12th, it's like how your Pluto evolves through your lifespan. What you will find with Pluto in the 12th, once it transits over there, you will find that you still have this super cool creation energy, but what happens is when you start to create things, they don't necessarily fit the vision. And sometimes it can feel like you somehow missed the mark, or it is not exactly what you planned it to be. And sometimes there can feel like there's a piece missing or some type of disappointment, even when you do achieve it. And through this process, what happens is Pluto goes in and it breaks down the 12th house. So what you have is this breakdown of illusions and delusions. And so it's like, okay, like that's great, but we need to break this down and bring it back down to reality and kind of rework this, because we look at the polarity point is in the 6th house, and the 6th house is all about like everyday karma yoga, routines. And so Pluto in the 12th will say, hey, let's break this down and make it something that is workable, tangible for you. And you can hold the vision, but you can't miss A, B, C, D in all the steps along the way. And this position will bring you to a place to kind of pull you out of the first house and say, hey, we need to break down. There's something we need to break down about ego and pull it back into the womb, the cosmic womb, so to speak, and say, hey, like, listen, creator, spirit, whatever you choose to call it, God, and you yourself are co-creators. So a lot of times you will find people used as like mediums in this space, or conduits for healing. A part of breaking down delusions, you may find that you experience something called limerence. I want to bring this up because this is something that I have personally experienced, and I experience it with not only jobs and like certain career paths that I take, but I also experience it through relationships. And what limerence is almost like, okay, so it's this state of obsession, and you take one experience and you expand it. So here's a good example is, and this is a really big one in the spiritual community, as someone searching for the one, that one love, that one person, that one twin flame. And what it is it's this internal experience where you take your relationships and you put them on a pedestal. But it doesn't even have to be a relationship, but what it is more of a obsession. So you could have met someone and you guys had an awesome interaction or whatever, but then you don't hear back from that person. But in your mind, you can find yourself, okay, well, maybe that's you have somehow convinced yourself that, okay, that's my twin flame, and they're going whatever they're going through, and they're, and then what you find is that you're postponing your life for this illusion. And I know that's something that can be really hard to hear or take on. And the reason why I want to bring it up is because every time I go through one is that I'm just like, you know what? I really wish someone would have told me that I had this pattern and that it didn't take me, almost 35 years to figure out that I have this pattern. And this pattern comes from CPTSD, and it's really always waiting for that hero to come in and swoop you up out of life to somehow change your life of what it is now. And I do this also with like jobs and hobbies. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this and it's going to work out great. And it's going to be everything I thought it would be. And then it's like, no. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for goals. But I do want to say, I think it's important that you take the steps from A, B, C, D. When you have these kind of like grand like thrust towards the future and like your goals and stuff like that. And with relationships, I do find that it is a little more, I don't want to say traumatizing, even though it can be, it really can be. Like if someone has ghosted you and you're still waiting for them months later, because it can really eat up pockets of time. And Pluto is going to help you like break through that. But sometimes it does take a minute to get through it. But I do want to mention that. And I'm going to put a link below and refer you to someone that can explain it much better than me because I love learning and I just want to share all my resources with you guys. Now, other neurospicy things you may experience is hyperfixation to burnout, also recognition of patterns, disassociation, escapism, and that's just to name a few. And some of these you may find that some of you may already have been diagnosed for ADHD or on the autism spectrum, and then you may also have not been and are not, but just experiencing these types of patterns in a whole. The reason why I say that is because some of these patterns are linked to ADHD and autism. And definitely, if you feel like a really strong resonance with that, kind of check out some more information and talk to a doctor and see if that's something that resonates and is going on for you. Because CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, is also common with those who have ADHD. What they find is that when we look at certain patterns, like looking at patterns of hyperfixation, so we can see the 6th house, and then complete and total burnout, we can see the 12th house. This is going to be a common pattern for this transit. Not only that, but we can also see between this axis the loss of time throughout our day. The 12th house, which represents Pisces, is kind of this dissolving of time, dissolving of space, and really this place of surrender. But not just surrender, but can be complete and total escapism. And you may find that you go through certain periods of burnout, and burnout can look, because there's autistic burnout, there's ADHD burnout, and these places of burnout can actually last for, I've had burnouts last for over a year, and they are super difficult to get out of, and then having to come back in and then work and find balance between these two spaces. Like, okay, well, let's not take on the world, but for sure, let's get a few things done today. And sometimes even just one thing is enough. So I'm going to move on to dreams. And the dreams are the super exciting part of this, having this placement. You can have what are known as like 3 different types of dreams. You can have past life dreams that are singular, so just one past life, or you can have a dream where there's multiple past lives in it and you're experiencing certain lessons and they are revealing some kind of understanding that you need to put into your normal working day. And these dreams tend to be highly symbolic in nature, which I love symbols, so I'm like always trying to break down my dreams. But I highly suggest keeping a dream diary for this placement because a lot of your dreams are going to help bring up any kind of emotional feelings that you may be having, and solutions to any type of problems that you are having. Now, the second type of dream is based on any kind of problems that you're having. And what happens is these dreams, you'll go to bed with a problem and then next thing you know, you like wake up with a solution and you may not even remember what that dream was. You may not be able to recall it. And some of these you remember super vividly. And I'm actually going to put a link below where science has studied this, and it's just a really cool article to read that they did find that people that meditated or went to bed with a certain problem that they would wake up and have a solution. So I thought that was really cool to find on the scientific end. With the third types of dreams, these are super conscious dreams. And super conscious dreams they can feel like more real than reality. They tend to be very intense. They tend to not feel like you are dreaming it at all. So you say you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, like, what was that? Like, and what happens in these dreams, it is really boundless of what can happen in these dreams. Certain experiences you can have with these super conscious dreams is meeting gods, becoming gods, killing your own demons, certain aspects of yourself, facing your inner demons. You may also find yourself seeing future events happen before they play out in the waking world. And you may also find yourself healing internal traumas. And this is just some of the very, very cool things that you can experience within these super conscious dreams. Sometimes I'll have like false awakening dreams where I think I'm awake and I'm walking around, but I'm still sleeping. And then I don't know that until I wake up later. And then I also experience some astral projection within these dreams. I can also experience spontaneous Kundalini activation where I go to the superconscious self. Another part of these dreams is you can also experience deja vu in these dreams. You would be like, what happened? I swear I've been here before. And you can be dreaming and you're like, what the heck? Like, I know I've been here before. I've even remembered dreams that I've had prior that I didn't have any kind of conscious awareness of. It must have been a dream that I've forgotten, but somehow in my dream I'm like, I remember that dream. And it's like, what? And it's super, super trippy and it's super cool. So I do highly recommend someone that does do dream interpretations. I'm actually thinking about offering that as a service. But if you are interested in getting a dream interpretation, just go ahead and reach out to me. I do have a link to my Instagram below, and you can always write me a message, and I am more than happy to take a look at your dream and analyze it and kind of see what it means to me. I always ask for emotions because emotions can change the entire dynamic of symbols. So, just to keep that in mind. So, with keeping a dream journal, I do highly recommend keeping a 28-day moon cycle, because what happens is the moon shifts through all the way from Aries to Pisces, and it goes about every 2.5 days it switches to the next one. And so within that, you can find that under certain signs that the moon is in, that you have super intense dreams. But keeping track of what days that you normally do have more intense dreams, like what moon sign it's in, and that way you can understand and really look at the different perspectives that are happening. So that way you can see, okay, well, if the moon is in Aries and I'm having a dream here, is it revealing some type of action that I need to take in my life? If I'm dreaming and it's the moon in Scorpio, well, is there some kind of deep healing that I need to pull up and reevaluate and look at what my perspective is, what's my psychological perspective on this dream? And so that's how we can really dive in deep and look at the internal world of dreams. But I do highly, highly recommend keeping a dream journal, so that way you can start to understand your own symbols. And like, I know a lot of people do a lot more esoteric dreams. I do mine very grounded. And I say, okay, like, how does this play out in every single day of my life? Because that is the one aspect that Pluto's polarity point of the 12th house is like, okay, so what's going on in daily life that's like, okay, you need to readjust this, you need to change this to work in through your karma yoga. And I'm intense with it, to say the least, but it does really help gain perspective, especially when you're having repetitive themes come up in your dreams. Like recently, I've probably had about 2 months of death and rebirth dreams, and I'm still working through those and getting that perspective. Okay, well, at least I know that this is what's happening in my life currently, and that I need to let go of some of these patterns, and I need to go ahead and take the action to some of these new perspectives. Just something to think about. So within that, the 12th house with Pluto there is going to bring up your unconscious patterning. And through that unconscious patterning, it's going to be like, hey, in your dreams, like, like the reason why you're running away from this situation, which is presenting itself as demons in your dreams, is because you have yet to face yourself. These demons are aspects of yourself, and they are what you find is scary. These are scary aspects of yourself that you don't want to look at and you don't want to process. And this is something that's coming up into your dreams. Now, I'm not saying that like to you. This is something that I would analyze in my own dreams. I'd be like, oh, okay. All right, I get that, but this is kind of the symbolism that we're looking at when it comes to these types of dreams, is that you can have very spiritual dreams, and they can also be very, very scary, depending on where you are in your own internal healing journey. But this aspect is going to continue to pull them up during your sleep state, so that way you can see what's going on with you unconsciously and why these patterns are happening throughout the day and throughout whatever time span. Because you may do periods of where you're finding you're doing really, really well, and then you find yourself swinging back into areas of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going through this again. I can't believe I'm doing this. Whether if that's just returning to extreme patterns. So it's really understanding that this the pendulum swings both ways, and it's about understanding that unconscious pattern that's keeping you from swinging back this way into full escapism. So I want to bring up this book, the Kybalion, so you guys can see it. And this book talks about the principles of polarity. Now, with this position, because Pisces represents the ocean, what you will notice is that you will swing between the Virgo 6th house, and you will swing between the 12th house representing Pisces. And through that swing back and forth, this is where you may feel the hyperfixation to the complete and total burnout. So here's an example. So a lot of times with this position, you have a lot of different characters, right? So you can have someone with this position that is, they love the streets and the streets love them. But then they walk away from the streets and they come back, and then what you find is that they are super, super extreme into religion and have very rigid rules. And so that is something that would play out in this position. It can also look like extreme working. It can even be like extreme meditation, extreme spiritual experiences or psychedelics, and going all the way into escapism, where what is once something that was kind of seen as like spiritual is now being brought into a completely different extreme. What you can find in this position is someone that is a sex addict and then goes completely into celibacy. And then they may go back to being a sex addict and then go back into celibacy. You may see people surrounded, say, like hookers for Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, these are the types of extremes that you will find. And because it is such a different placement, and it is such a, because Pisces is boundless, you're going to have a lot of different people in this group. You're going to have people that are drug addicts to being sober, to going back to being drug addicts, to going back to being sober. And so this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about having balance and understanding that there needs to be some kind of like consistency, because what Pluto's really doing here in the 12th house is it's trying to bring up your unconscious habits, your unconscious traumas, if you have Scorpio here specifically. But it's supposed to bring up what is unconscious to you. And it's supposed to break that down, break that aspect down, so that way you're able to live more balance in your everyday life. With this position, what you can find is that you go back and forth between extremes until you understand, until you find a certain solution, or until you need to create a boundary. And that's a big part with the 12th house, is actually being able to create boundaries around escapism, boundaries around sex addiction, boundaries around gaming addictions, and being able to create boundaries for yourself in these areas, so that way you can live a more healthy, balanced day-to-day life. But the reason why I really love this house is because people that have Pluto in the 12th house, whether if it's transiting right now, if they have it natally, if they have it progressed, what will happen is we're going to go through the next 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius. And after that happens, we have Pluto in Pisces. Now, when Pluto enters Pisces, the only people that are going to know how to teach people to walk out of these extremes, walk out of being a drug addict, to finding balance with this, or it can even be because a lot of people are going to be walking, at the end of that, a lot of people are going to be walking out of cults, or they're going to be walking out of complete and just total isolation. This group of people, if you should choose to teach and find your footing and find what balance works for you, you guys are really going to be setting the stepping stones for the future, for when Pluto does enter into Pisces, because you guys are going to know really what this position comes with. And when people start experiencing these situations in their life and they're trying to find their own balance, your books that you write, your videos, your webinars that you put out there to the world on how to walk out, how to walk from the streets back into creating a healthy, balanced life, because you've done it a million times, it's going to save people's lives. And it's going to offer a tremendous amount of healing. And I just want to put that out there because it's like your struggle doesn't go in vain. And if you should choose to write about your struggle, it is going to help so many people in the future, because that's where we're going. That's where we are progressing. After Pluto and Aquarius, people are going to have to know how to walk out of these extreme moments, out of these extreme moments of escapism. And it can even be like getting so totally fixated on VR, virtual reality, or since that's the way we're moving into the future, or video games and having to be completely disconnected from family and just everyday activities that need to be taken care of. That's something that we can also see here, but it's about able to see where the escapism is happening so that we can really plug in to the reality of now and use this 12th house creation energy to really create the lives that we desire. And so I just wanted to bring up another resource for you guys. I always bring up this book on this channel, but if you're new, Pluto by Jeffrey Wolf Green is a very cool book, and he has a lot of this information in there, and some of the things are just in this video are my own recognition of patterns with this placement. And so I hope you enjoyed this video today, and I'm going to put a link for different resources below, including the book, so that way you guys can always come back to certain aspects that were really interesting for you, and you can go into them and research them yourself. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day, and thank you for joining me for this video. Have a good day. Bye-bye.